Hey, everybody. Welcome to our webinar where we're covering all things marketing intelligence agents. We have Anil with us, who's giving us an insider's look on how at Lifesight we take unified marketing measurement and a layer of really sophisticated marketing intelligence agents to bring you the best decision making in the market. We've got quite a few attendees rolling in right now, so we'll just give everybody a minute or two to join, and then we will get started. Looks like we have a really great turnout today. Lots of people rolling in. I did just want to brief everybody that we will have an opportunity at the end of the webinar for people to come forward with questions. However, if you have any questions throughout the webinar that you want to queue up for us, we're happy to take those in the chat and make sure that we get everybody's questions covered. All right. We've got a lot of people waiting, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I just want to take a minute to thank everybody for joining us today. I think looking at agents and agentic components of technology is a really hot topic, and we're really excited to share with you this insider's look at MIA, or Marketing Intelligence Agents at Lifesight. We've got a really incredible panelist here to share with us his perspective and his expertise. Anil has over 15 years of engineering and data science experience. His career has spanned time at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and IBM Software Lab. That all happened before he founded Lifesight. And during his time at Lifesight, he's led the technology vision behind what is absolutely the most forward-thinking marketing intelligent platform in the market. And under his leadership, our unified marketing measurement platform is now powered by causal AI, marketing mix modeling, and incrementality testing, all in one unified platform. And this helps brands move beyond typical vanity metrics, dashboards, and allows them to make decisions that actually drive growth. So today we're really going to focus on MIA, our marketing intelligence agents, and how all components of agentic AI functionality is fundamentally changing the way all marketers go from data to decision making. So with that said, Anil, I'll pass it over to you and let you take it away.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you for introducing Ada and briefing the panel. Hello, everyone. Thank you for carving out your time today. Being Tuesday, I know for many of you, it's not easy to manage the time. So I'm going to ensure that every minute, the matter here for our rest of this webinar. So let's get started with the problem, right? Because I believe if you don't agree on a problem first, whatever I'm going to say doesn't matter, I believe, right? So let's agree on that first. So more data, better model, faster dashboard, tons of insights, right? Still the same bad decisions. Let me know your reaction by thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you can, if that sounds familiar to you, right? And this room for many of the people. Okay, I guess we are in alignment pretty much. And that ensures that this next 30 minutes is for you, right? It's going to be interesting to talk about this and seeing how we are solving this, right? My goal for the next 30-40 minutes is to expose some of the invisible structural bottleneck that we have in our measurement system, which are ignored for long and not talked about enough actually in the industry. We are going to spend most of our time today as part of this webinar on literally demonstrating how can we fix that, right? So let's get deeper into some of the problems and then get deeper into how we are solving that, right? So if you see the problem that I want to touch base today is not specifically on measurement, but it's on decision and action, how we have been doing decisioning and actioning into our measurement system actually, right? So if you see somewhere along the way, the industry made a quite assumption around this, that if you just build better models, more granular attribution, faster dashboard, and tons of insights, decision would follow naturally. The insight would be so obvious that action would be guaranteed. And we have seen the industry had to spend a decade solving the measurement problem. We have been seeing the more Bayesian models, more granular models, more frequently refreshed models, democratized incrementality testing, and the data got sharper and sharper over the years. And somehow, despite all of that investment in insight generation, the gap between the model told us what to do and what we actually did it, and especially when we did it, remained broken, right? The decision didn't get faster, the budget didn't shift, bolder, and still decisions are being done based on the gut feeling. I'm sure many of people will agree with this. And finally, the confidence didn't go up, right? The question is why? I believe the reason is that measurement and decision making are not the same problem. They are two different problems, and we have been solving for the wrong one. I call this space between them the measurement action gap. Think of it as a bridge, right? Where on one side, we have your model, clean, precise, pointing to something very clear. On the other side, the actual decisions. The budget has to be moved, the channel cut has to be decided, and the bold call has to be made, right? And somehow the bridge between them is broken. As a CXO, I mean the marketeers and the CMO, you have felt it. The model says one thing, the business does another, and a couple of months later, you all are sitting around asking what happened. We have found this to be true consistently, that this bridge is not broken because just the data was wrong. It's literally broken because the path from insight to approved action runs through organizational structure that were never designed for speed, that was never designed for making decisions, never designed for taking actions, right? And at Lifesight, we refer this broken bridge as the last mile problem in the marketing measurement. And again, this problem is not the data, and certainly it's not the involved stakeholders as well, right? It's a structural bottleneck on how organizations have been interacting, right? So let's see where this friction comes from, right? Uh, there are three different gaps that we define where all of this friction or most of this friction comes from, right? If you see the stakeholder and marketing like CMO, CFO, marketeer, analyst, data scientists, and many others, right? They all speak different language. Marketing and finance are often working on different version of measurement realities and the facts. Marketing sees ROAS and attribution, whereas finance sees revenue and forecasting, and that doesn't match, right? Analysts expect in reports and dashboards. Data scientists reflects in the code, model, parameter, etc. Right? So in practice, this gap persists not as a skill deficit, but as the bandwidth problem, right? When an executive asks, what if we tweak the budget, right? There is no button to click and the result is there. That's a business question, right? Must be manually translated into complex query, then translated to custom code, then the model adjustment, and bunch of rigorous validations, right? So every what if question and measurement becomes a mini project, right? And along with that, there is a misalignment over how all of them are organized as well, right? So if you see analyst, data scientist, and engineering team, for example, they work in an organized methodological sprints, right? The business leaders are not. They react to chaotic real-time market pressure. And if you see this rhythm often do not align. When the business needs a decision by Tuesday, but the analysis takes until the Friday, the model, the data, the insight, the dashboard becomes irrelevant to that decision, right? Because it came too late. The data is right, the model is right, but the timing is pretty wrong, right? That it didn't came on time. And also there is whole bunch of ad hoc reporting that keeps coming to all of these stakeholders, right? And I see this as the compounding to this third problem, right? Let's take just one example around the budget reallocation, for example. If we had to do something like reallocate budget by moving the spend from my top saturated channels to channels where there is a growth opportunity, reducing the overall budget by X%, improving the ROAS, comparing all the scenario, and preparing a deck for CFO. A lot of work, right? So if you had to do this manually, it has to go through a series of cycle, and the results comes in months, right? So, and once you present the results, some other tweak comes, and things keeps moving actually. So if you see that there are a few structural cracks in the measurement foundation that I would like to touch before we get into solutions actually. Let's start with the platform reporting. It's a known fact that every ad platform self-grades its own homework. Meta, Google, TikTok, each of them claims full credit. And at the result of that, we usually see that a brand with 5 million across 4 different platforms often sees 3 to 4x total claimed revenue versus actual revenue, right? Traditional MMM takes weeks to months, right? So in fast moving categories, a model is usually stale in a week. So we are literally optimizing for a live campaign against last quarter reality, not the current reality, right? Incrementality test is pretty slow. We see that each test covers one channel. It takes weeks of the analyst's time. It needs a very statistical, power to high convergence, and only covers a snapshot of the time, not the whole, the bunch of the reality. It covers only a snapshot of time when it was ran. More than half of the time is spent on the data wrangling, manual upload, inconsistent naming, agency feeds duplicates, no anomaly detection, right? So whole bunch of data chaos, right? Um, Inside to action gap, we already talked about, right? How this bridge is broken. And if you see some of the enterprise vendors, the MMM studies cost like 200K plus. Enterprise SaaS charge like 5,000 to somewhere 25,000 per month. A statistical power requirement exclude smaller conversion volumes. So literally, if you see the mid-market brands specifically are largely flying blind or trusting just the platform ROAS that comes, right? So in a way, the measurement stake is never designed for driving the decisions at a speed, which is the core of the problem, right? How can we fix this with decision intelligence is something that came recent with all the AI advancement, right? And things have been moving pretty fast in the last couple of years. Over the last few years at the Lifesight, we have grown into a platform that enables action. But in the last 1.5 years, we have been turning that into decision intelligence to fix these structural cracks that we talked about. So actually launching a new product instead, we rewired the life site from a tool you use into a team you lead, right? And to do that, I'm excited to introduce Mia as a team of a specialized expert that works 24 by 7 to improve your measurement decisions. So if you're a team like ours, you got a tons of insight, you got tons of hypotheses and tons of ideas and bunch of what if scenarios. The limiting factor often is time to chase them all down, and exactly that was one of the reason we started building the Mia. Think of it as an extension to your team, adding few more analysts, adding few more strategists and decision scientists ready to get to work and help you to reach your goal faster, right? So there are two different world if you see, without Mia and with Mia, how it look like to give you a sense how agentic AI is, effective in solving some of these cracks. Actually, we need to stop limiting the technology to just the experts. Actually, with AI agents, we can give decision marketers direct access to the powerful data in real time, turning slow static reports into the fast, ready to use reports, actually, right? So instead of waiting for data scientist or your analyst to give your answer, you should be able to get the answer yourself. And an AI agent makes this happen, right? They make complicated tech and turn into a smart, highly accurate assistant that anyone can interact with the speed of business, right? So this is how the flow happens without me, right? So you get a measurement question, it goes to bunch of experts in your team, of course, leveraging the measurement foundation of this organization, and we produce some output, right? Turned out to be a static measurement system. What say if you see the with Mia kind of system, the measurement question goes to a specialized agents, right? So there are a bunch of agents working in background for you, of course, on top of the measurement foundation that has been built and generate artifacts in a different way that's easy to understand and pretty fast. So we end up having a dynamic decision system, right, with Mia. Let's see, quickly, where does Mia eliminate some of these, the problems in the industry that we are talking about. First, which is one of my favorite, is discovering the unknowns. So if you see there are metrics that you trust, there are metrics that you question, and there are metrics that you don't know that you are missing, right? And this is the important one, right? There are the metrics that you don't know that you are missing at all, right? So for example, ask any marketing team what's working, and they'll show you a dashboard. Ask them why it's working, and the room goes silence, right? And the most dangerous number isn't that which is wrong. It's the one that nobody knows, right? Because AI can analyze hundreds of thousands of variables and match patterns at limitless scale, which is not possible by any analyst or traditional tool or software. It can reveal vital insights hidden deep further down the surface level data, right? So it's really powerful at the discovering the unknowns. Um, the decision to action gap, and finally the trust. We talked about that. The solution is not just building another dashboard or another better model. It requires a fundamental shift in the entire goal, right? And it should be driving the action and delivering a finance ready decision. Yes, finance ready decision is one of the north star metrics that literally matter in this space at the time. Closed loop budget optimization, consumer can just go from the model output to translate to specific bids, propose with the guardrails, execute the API, and impacts there in few minutes, not quarter or month, basically, right? Um, Models can be, the thing that we talked about, the models goes stale, it can be recalibrated in real time with this, and the experiments can be run autonomously. We'll talk about some of these quickly. And there's certain reason why the Mia science at these and the other platform and the other AI agent, I would say, the fails that because vendors are taking the BI tools and traditional measurement system, putting a chat interface on top of it, and just wrapping the existing API as MCP server or calling it an agentic intelligence platform. End of the day, if you see, it's garbage in and garbage action, right? These tools are designed for analysts and marketers with a question already in mind, not for the marketing leaders or decision makers who need to know what they don't know actually, right? And methodology blind spot is worst thing in this, right? So uh, most of the vendors force you to pick one, right? Either MMM or incrementality or attribution. Each methodology alone has gaps, right? We know that this reality, right? So MMM gives you a strategic altitude, but not the tactical granularity, right? Attribution gives you the granularity, but doesn't give you the causal proof, right? Incrementality gives you a proof, but not the continuous signals, right? So forcing a choice between them is creating a blind spot, right? And that's where the Mia science and can fix that. We call Mia an ambient decision system, and I use the ambient deliberately because the end state is not just a tool you go and use, it's a system that always on, always watching, and always thinking about your business, right? We divide this, the way Mia walks into 5 different stages. You can ask questions and it can answer you. You can literally go deeper into your analytical questions, right? It can watch what is happening in your business. It can literally start thinking and advising. This is the place where the system becomes literally the ambient decision system, and start thinking about your business, start advising you, right? And it can act autonomously as well based on the given constraint, the rules, and the guardrails, right? And and finally, it learns along with you, right? And this is what makes the whole system compounding value over the time, right? So Mia compares its prediction against the actual outcome, tracks where the recommendations were right or wrong, and uses that to make the next recommendation sharper, right? So the more you use, the more it learns, and it grows with you. That's how the Mia work actually. And these are the 3 pillars that we thought of while building the Mia. Of course, it built on the top of the causal foundation. So no garbage decision, no garbage action, right? Unified methodology. I believe the methodology debate is over in 2026 at least, right? Triangulation wins. So MMM plus incrementality plus attribution and cross-validating each other is the way to go, right? If anyone's selling you just one, is selling you the incomplete solution, right? Mia can reallocate budget, pause underperforming campaigns, and launch geo incrementality experiments, but of course, only within the guardrails that you will configure. And this is how it works in a closed loop. That what we talked about: causal proof, agentic execution, the final, the last mile problem with finance ready decisions, and continuous learning over the time. These are some of the capabilities that Mia has in terms of, it's not just one system, it's not just one agent. Underneath, it has specialized agents to do number of things, right? It can do the causal inference that's being done by a separate agent, budget optimization, scenario planning, etc. Right? So whatever we see end to end to solve these problems in the marketing measurement, we have a specialized agent for each underneath and built on top of the Lifesight foundations, measurement foundation, and they were all work together and fit into Mia system, and Mia works as a coordinator along with them. I guess it's time to go and see Mia in action, and I would like to start a few live demo. So just to mention that it's a live demo on the real data. So it depending on the questions, how complex it is, which we like to try a few complex questions. It takes a little while, so we might skip few questions and see what best we can cover in interest of time. Okay, so here we go. So this is how the Mia interface looks like. It has a bunch of predefined questions already, which comes from the context of a given customer's workspace, right? And based on the conversation so far, if you lined up after a few days, a week, these might look different, right? Because it learns with you and it remembers everything and try to come up with the better questions which you will be helpful for you to make decisions, right? So this is the very first time. So the questions are pretty basic ones. We'll start with a few basic question and then go into a complex, the what if scenarios to some strategic questions and get deeper into some of the measurement foundation related question as well, right? Let's go with a very simple question where we would just like to, plan 5 million budget over next quarter, right? Looks simple, but there are a lot goes behind. And Mia start thinking the moment it receives the questions, right? You can see all the thought process here, right? What all has gone in before even moving further and getting in touch with the Lifesight methodology, right? So it's rewinding, understanding the user intent and whole bunch of details, right? It's pretty long, pretty details, right? And the reason is, we wanted to make, this to be trusted. And of course, if we don't trust, we cannot use the system, right? So trust is the key. To give you the full transparency, full auditability that you can go and audit anything. So when a decision comes out of Mia system, you can literally go trace every decision point and you can audit every decision why some decision has been made, right? And you can, of course, debate as well into the chat. Coming back to this, the selection of model, most of the measurement related plans, specifically around the budget allocations and how we can hit the target and the forecasting. These area into the measurement, we start with something called marketing measurement foundation, which is built on top of Lifesight methodologies. And core of that is the models that we built, right? It can be any type of the model, but it starts model as base, right? So it always talk to you in context of a model and also solve the problem in context of a model. You'll have flexibility to choose the model as well. Let's just go and choose one of the model. It pre-selected revenue Q4 based on, as we are talking about revenue, you pre-selected a revenue model, but let's see, right? Uh, so if you see it guides you literally whatever is needed to make that decisions, right? So it literally start thinking with you. For example, if you go and ask this question to an analyst, a lot of things comes into the mind, as a clarifying question, and Mia works in a similar way and try to clarify a lot of these questions. Okay. It might take a couple of minutes because we don't believe that, any marketing measurement decision can be made in the seconds, right? If you see a lot of things happens in background, it has to get the base budget. It has to go through, your historical data, analyze that, get into the model context, execute that, right? And then finally come up with, the proposal for you. And the proposal also, the answers comes based on the persona who has logged in to this system. For example, if there is a performance market here, the response will be different from, a CFO versus CEO, right? So it gets into the context, try to understand the persona and respond accordingly, right? Uh, and then again, whatever is happening in the background is here for you, to add more and more transparency. So it's working on a quarter. It's pinpointing the budget focus. And at this point, if you see here, the executing tools, what it means that it's literally going and executing things using a tool on top of, the life site methodologies, right? So a lot of methodologies has been exposed to Mia and it's get in touch. It doesn't do anything on its own in terms of the core methodology that comes from the Lifesight core methodology itself. And based on the question, it sometimes takes 10 to 15 minutes also, but this is a very simple question. It should be in a couple of minutes, right? So we are already over a minute. We should see. By the time we get the response here, we will try a few different questions as well. I can just brief about that. So we can try out different what if scenarios. For example, if you literally want to cut budgets from one channel to another channel, and if you literally go and deeper into the whole cross channel, cannibalization to interaction effect to halo effect and how it works together, and if you touch your one channel, what will happen to another channel, right? And we have keeping this in mind that some of these questions might go on and take some of the time. We have pre-recorded some of the good questions that we would like to try out and showcase the capability, what Mia can do. We can just go to that maybe and try out. So I'll just switch to presentation and we'll just take a. Let's go ahead and ask another strategy question where we would like to, optimize the uncommitted budget that we have, which is expiring soon. We already have a few things in our mind how we can utilize this budget. Let's try to validate this with Mia and have a strategic advice on that. So here we go. User has already specified the three ways it can utilize the uncommitted budget. But we want to understand what the marginal ROI curve will look like and whether this 2.5 million of additional spend is efficient or we have already passed the knee of the curve, right? So again, we need to choose a model. We'll go with our on-off revenue model. We can just put either the number or name of the model, and Mia gets into the context of that model to work on top of Lifesight marketing measurement methodologies and different sophisticated algorithms that we have underneath, and it's try to uncover the details about this, right? So if you see here, it's a very sophisticated questions. After processing, it has analyzed that, I need to analyze three scenarios and compare these scenarios, right? One is baseline, another was in deploying full $2.5 million of budget this quarter itself, and come up with an optimized plan that invests only up to the point of diminishing returns, right? Once we cross that, start optimizing that. And as it's going to be a multi-step reasoning process, actually, and reallocating different budget scenarios, it takes a while and it says that promptly that this will take a few moments to process. It says I'll present the full comparison report once it's ready. We can try move ahead with another questions, or we can just wait and come back here. We can create a new questions, new session, and come back here. But we got very quick, right? Though it said it will take too long. So here we have, the scenario comparison and summary basically, right? And the key insights around that, which clearly says that deploy full 2.5 million scenario shows a significant drop in ROAS, means it's not recommended, which it says very clearly. The bottom section on the recommendation, I recommend you do not deploy the additional 2.5 million this quarter. Instead, adopt the optimal investment allocation. On the knee of the curve, your question was whether you are past the knee of the curve. The analysis strongly suggests that for many of our current channels, we are actually, right? And the optimal investment plan pulls back the spend from this inefficient area. This is a recommended way, right? That pull the budget from the inefficient channels and add another 2.5 million or push even further. We can always go and ask questions around this, or we can go deeper into a specific section of this analysis itself, which clearly asks what do you like to do next, right? Which is very curated suggestions or recommendation that come from the whole context of the workspace, the whole context of the sessions, the conversation that we have been going through. We have asked like 5, 6 scenarios already. It gets into the context and they recommend what next we can do. Show me a detailed budget allocation for optimal, because it's saying the optimal investment is desirable. Let's see what it says, right? So that's a winning strategy out of 3 options that we thought to try out. Let's see the underlying details of that. Yeah. So here we go into the detail of that specific scenario of optimal investment allocation. And here is the summary: incremental lift, efficiency gain, and of course the headline action, the reallocate budget from underperformed channel, because that's the verdict, right? What's the total budget now? Different the constant setup, right? And what was the objective that was given, and what's the rationale behind that? Let's touch base another section of it. Let's say so these are all what if scenario or budget reallocation. Let's go with something that we would like to target. So for example, we need to hit 6. Yeah, so this is one the deep what if scenario question, and another question, but meanwhile we'll see the question that we asked earlier on planning the budget, how that looks like, right? We can try out this another very interesting question where we literally need to hit the target KPI in revenue. To me, it's not a reasonable expectation looking at the current the revenue and the spend and even the forecasted revenue. This seems to be very high to me, but let's see. Build me a phased plan from Q1 to Q4 that gets us with most capital efficiency and few persona as well, right? Show me the required spend per quarter and expected revenue for each quarter. Of course, this is again a complex question where it has to be broken into different aspects, right? It has to look at the baseline. It has to look for the optimized plan and the forecasted revenue and calculate everything quarter by quarter and see how can we hit the 60 million in revenue next. That's what we'll call it, the target KPI on the platform. It clearly says it's a strategic question, building a phased multi-quarter plan to hit a specific revenue target. It is a complex task that goes beyond a standard optimization, right? It's not just a simple reallocation of the budget, right? So to do properly, the specialist thinks that it has to do 4 things. Set the 60 million annual budget target, break down the goal, incorporate the seasonality and all over, because we are factoring that Q4 peak season, right? So it has to take that into account. And then we have, our ask that determine the most capital efficient budget in the intent, right? So you see, it was able to break down the intent very clearly into 4 different buckets and assigning this to someone and asking that, to proceed. That's another guardrails that we have because it's a complex question. It can think differently than you think, and that's the whole point of idea to either validate or guide and take the recommendations from the agent as well. So it's co-working with you intelligently. It's literally asking the confirmation to proceed based on this plan. I'll just go ahead now. Let's proceed. Yeah. So as we are targeting 60 million, it's looking for that trajectory, and it has again come up with a plan how it will proceed. Still under process. It might take a few minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes in such complex scenario. I have easily seen it takes the kind of thinking that it has to do. It might take up to 10 minutes as well. We can keep looking at the thought it's going through, right? So it's going for quarter by quarter optimization, doing the forecasting, combining the different aspect of reaching the goal. So it's currently at forecasting the revenue goals, then evaluating the budget scenarios, analyzing each quarter's revenue, and it always tells that it's taking the conservative approach here. So you see the constant that we discussed. So it's conservative here by default. You can enforce as well, but as we are looking recommendation from the MIA, it thinks that conservative is the best approach, which is called out in the final report as well, and we can see into the thought process as well that it's considering the constraint as conservative. So you can just see how many things are involved here. Revised annual target, it's doing the calculation, then move to Q2, and as we called out initially, given these results, it's not feasible to achieve 60 million annual target with this current approach of setting high fixed quarterly target using conservative constraint. It very clearly called out that the model is indicating that to achieve such a high target, either much larger budget is required or constraints needs to be significantly loosened, right? That is aggressive. How much we can go on the lower side, on the upper side to move. I'll just pause because it can go in a bit more detail explaining the results, but we got the context, right? That it has to go much deeper analysis, which is very complex doing manually, changing the budget parameters and model parameters and going deep into the model. It does that effectively, right? On these complex questions as well, right? We can try some of those, the complex questions going, in the live setup, for example. So some of the questions that we can try, which is very strategic, I would like to explain. That's, for example, one of, we usually go a lot of times such questions that, the board has just approved 20% cut to our marketing budget for the next quarter. I need to know which channels should observe and whole bunch of things around that, right? So I'll just go with a new conversation because it might get into the context of older one, which we were already going through. So this starts a phrase basically, and this is also a strategic question where it has to break that into multiple sections because it says the 20% versus business as usual and the whole analytics around that, right? What comes in play. And again, it has to get into the context of a model and it goes into that, right? It does a bunch of things. By the time it happens also, I would like to show a few more interesting things that we can see. So we the way we built Mia is, to be executed and help our customers wherever they are, right? So if they happy to come and try out the Mia on Lifesight platform, this is the interface, right? Mia runs a lot of those capability which we talked about, right? That it can do budget allocation, forecasting, it can run experiments and whole bunch of things, right? A lot of things can happen autonomously in the background as well. That's another interface, right? But one of the most popular interface which is going as of now is Claude and any agentic AI interface. For example, if power users, they can go to different CLIs, right? People can go to use, the people who are literally on the Google enterprise ecosystem, they can do Google Enterprise, Gemini Enterprise, Claude, the Cursor, and Anti-Gravity, whole bunch of any AI agentic tool. We can access Mia right there, right? And I would like to go and talk about a few things, specifically around Claude, because that's the most, widely used as of now, and things are very powerful for Mia there. Uh, because we can add custom skills, custom plugins based on the customer's persona and the customer's workspace and the user's perspective, and things gets executed in accordance to that actually. So by the time this also comes, which will take somewhere around 3 to 5 minutes, I guess, and meanwhile we can see that actually. right? So if you see, and I would like to start with a very interesting question around, the relation between the channels in a given complex ecosystem where a brand operates, let's say, 40 or 50 channels, right? Or different marketing mix, basically, right? Things becomes pretty complex to analyze data or things or allocations over 40, 50 channels, right? For a given long period and a lot of what if scenarios, right? So let's say we just wanted to check our intuition that I have always suspected our TB spend amplifies our paid search performance. Very common. It could be another channel in your case. When we are on TV, our brand search ROAS spikes, right? Does our MMM model capture this interaction effect? Just another validation, right? If it does, quantify the halo from TB to paid search, and what happen if we just cut all the TB, right? So we wanted to analyze the impact also. Uh, so cloud is connected to our MIA ecosystem via MCP gateway, not just typical MCP servers. And again, if you see, it lists models basically because that's the way to start in terms of the Lifesight methodology. The model is the core. So it's trying to list the models. It will list the model and start working on top of that, right? So it checks my the preference also based on the context that I always choose this omni new customer as model. So let's select that and TB to paid search, right? I guess my screen is not visible. I'll just reshare the whole desktop because I'm sharing the cloud screen. Let me just reshare. I'll share my whole desktop and hopefully that should be the okay. Okay. Uh, okay, I guess we can see now. By the time it comes into this context of analyzing the halo effect, uh, sorry, I have to keep switching and keep moving. The earlier question that we tried, the board just approved 20% case. Here is the result for that. So it literally goes into the different buckets of comparison and present you the defensible strategy for budget cut and advise you the next step also, right? And again, it comes with the very curated, and related questions based on whether the 20% but scenario or what else we can do, right? So we can go for generating the budget worksheet for this scenario week by week. We can do the forecasting. So it tries to understand you have done a scenario analysis, what you'd like to do next, right? What user can expect to do, and it goes into that context. Okay. So if you see that, our the halo interaction effect from TB to linear search, this is what, the interaction diagram looks like. So it literally gets into the the deep aspect of the whole causal inference, right? So before we build the model, we build complete knowledge context for the users actually, right? And we come up with this, the causal inference DAG, what we call it, which is nothing but a business snapshot, how your business runs, how decisions are made. As much context we can capture, we try to capture in this graph, and we quantify each and every node in that graph, right? So if you see, each node is quantified here, that there are some direct effect, there are indirect effect, which are halo effect as well, right? So you see the TB total contribution was 3.97 and indirect is 44.2%. right? So it literally breaks into the direct effect, the indirect effect, the total effect, and how each channel is convincing another channel, right? And whole bunch of details around that actually, right? But this graph itself, gives you a very good quantification how things look like, right? um, we can have a lot of follow-up questions here. For example, let's say another what if scenario here itself, right? That we are talking about the linear TB impact, and let's say you would like to understand what if I, increase the linear TV by 20%? So it goes into another what if scenario, and comes with a lot of interesting details actually. And again, by the time this comes, let's utilize our time because it again take a couple of minutes here. We can maybe switch back to our original, the actual Mia platform and ask another interesting question. That a major competitor just announced they are doubling their paid search spend next quarter. I want to defend our position without increasing my total budget. How should I defensively reallocate? Should I match them? Should we copy what our competitors are doing on social? Or we should try something different, right? Or shift investment into channels where they are weak, right? So should we just follow what my closest competitor is doing, or should I go opposite to that, right? And the whole goal is I want to defend our position without increasing my total budget, and of course, we want to defend our revenue, right? Very interesting question, right? And again, it goes into the multiple steps of the reasoning exercises, and it has to do the baseline, the optimization, the forecasting, and look into the whole budget history, and each has been decided and defined with another specialized agent, right? It has pre-selected the revenue because it's a revenue-related question, but I'll go with the optimizer D2C model. By the time it comes again, will this it's still ongoing. Uh, by the way, it is still going. We have a lot of already interesting conversation which I have pre-filled here around interaction and the halo effect. We can just I can just walk you through quickly and see how it goes, right? So this is to start with similar question that we started on the TV and Google paid search. We talked about this, right? Extension to this, there's a lot of question which is ongoing, that the linear TV reduction and how it looks like. It comes with if we expend extra on this, what is revenue gained happen, right? And how the ROAS looks like and how ROAS shift with a lot of insight actually. Uh, Another question we can is very popular because we would always like to go deeper to understand why certain thing is happening in certain way, right? And literally ask question, and saturation, ad stock, and laggard effect. A lot of these, technicality that goes with the data scientist can be literally uncovered here in an easy way, right? So show me the saturation curve for the linear TV, right? And it shows whole bunch around just one channel, right? Why that's driving so much revenue, why the revenue is going down, and why things are looking that way, right? How it impacts, the directly on some other channel and in total effect, right? And whole bunch of analysis around the saturation curve, right? It goes deeper into explaining the saturation curve actually, right? Another question apart from that, how much my YouTube effect mediated through Google search, right? There is none. And if it is there, it tells you, right? So linear TV goes to the branded and then revenue. From YouTube, the revenue has the direct effect, right? We do not see any mediated effect here, right? It clearly calls out that. A few another interesting, I mean, you can keep trying for each channel, right? Or we can ask at once and it will give you the whole channel together. But this is a very complex causal graph with 40 plus nodes. It's very difficult to go one by one and even analyzing the results in one go for each channel, right? Um, and you can always ask, whatever the strategy we go, we can, just ask to create a slide or presentation, right? And this is how it looks, right? So it creates a presentation right away for the whole mediation analysis. If you can see my presentation, this is how it looks like. It generated out of our tool, basically, based on the questions that we are going through and whole bunch of details, actually. Right? So this is what we were seeing, right? So causal halo pathways, different pathways, the whole bunch of, the analytics that goes behind. So whatever we are talking here, whole conversation or any specific part of the conversation, you can always create a slide. You can share, with a link, you can share in a slide, or you can even share sessions directly with any user, right? Another hypothetical scenario that we are thinking of cutting DOH, right, to fund more performing channels, right? So that's our hypothesis. We believe from our intuition that let's cut some budget from the DOH and reallocate that to most performing channel. But we wanted to just analyze, will that hurt anything in the downstream? Because my DOH might be driving a lot of other channels, right? So we cannot just look DOH alone, right? We need to see where all it has, the halo effect, actually, right? And it does whole analysis around that, right? What will happen if you cut DOH, right? There will be vertic, right? So short answer, cutting DOH won't hurt anything in the downstream. It's safe to reallocate, right? So we can take budget and give it to others, basically, right? Um, Similar question, but on the influencer spend, do we lose anything beyond just influencer if you do anything with that, right? And whole bunch of analysis around that, of course, along with the vertex, because there are, like, a lot of interaction effect, right? So here it says, yes, cutting influencer trigger a devastating three hop cascade, right? So you can't just go and cut it, influencer, because it has cascading effect, and it shows whole bunch of details around this here also, right? Um, Similar scenarios, right? So it can go on, right? And you can go into very interesting detail, right? So um, if not a specific channel, a very broad question as well, that where am I hitting saturation today? List out my channels, campaign, the type, marginal returns, and approximate inflection point for each, and what I should do next, right? So it analyze, the zones and the number of channel, devise the inflection points and a lot of details. It can go on, actually, right? Um, but in interest of time, we'll take a pause here, and we see that one of the question that we asked, like, almost 10 minutes back, is still going on. So because that was a very deep question around studying your competitors' behavior and seeing what you can do, whether we should copy the competitor or go against the competitor, right? So it might come up in maybe another 5 minutes, right? So sometime it goes to 15 minutes also. And it also depends on how complex the model is, right? So the model that we are talking about here is having 40 plus variables, and it's a nested model having many child underneath, right? If it's a very simple model, result could come in just 5 minutes, right? But in complex model, it can go up to 15 minutes as well, right? With this, I would like to take a pause, and maybe we can, go for Q&A. So you see, I have called the compare safe scenario. So it's finally, comparing everything together before it presents, right? So it might come in just another a minute or so. Yeah,
Perfect. I think while we're
it's
waiting for that, we can take time to address a couple of the questions that have come up. I think one is a much more general question that is really interesting, and that's what is the most common misconception about AI in marketing? I think we're showing some really complex scenarios, but still a lot of trust that needs to be built. So, what is, in your opinion, Anil, the most common misconception for AI in marketing?
Um, a very good question, first of all, because the misconceptions are real here, and I see many misconception actually, right? But let me call out few very clearly. One misconception that we see that this kind of system, mere kind of system, will take away someone's work, right? As we explained in one of the scenario, that's not the case, right? It's going to amplify your role. So instead of your analyst or data scientist or a strategist asking every minor measurement detail questions, the ad hoc treadmill problem that we talked about, they can spend their significant time on building a good quality model, right? Which will fix your garbage in garbage out problem, right? So build a good model, build good foundational measurement foundation, and then move ahead, right? That's one of the biggest misconception I see. It's amplified, it works as your extended team actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another I see that very prominent is that AI agents or for example, even the Mia, people might have the question, it cannot be trusted, which we
Mm-hmm.
try to demonstrate it can be, right? If it is built in that way, right? So if the trust is added, if it is traceable, you can go and audit every decision point, everything what Mia does, it records, right? You can just go and audit. It means it can be audited as well, right? So when you go and present your CFO the details, you can literally present the audit as well, right? So
Yeah.
here is the decision, and these are the reasons, right? These decisions were made.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think a foundation, lots of transparency and fast
So,
decision making pretty much sum it up. We're at time, so thank you so much, Anil, for such a thorough review of our marketing intelligence agents. And just want to thank everybody for attending today and taking the time. Really looking forward to follow-ups. I know that there's a lot more to see and a lot more to learn about Lifesight and Mia. So any of our attendees today, strongly encourage you to take some time to sign up for a demo and get a personalized view of the most pressing questions that you have specific to your business. And we can share exactly how Mia and Unified Marketing Measurement solve those problems for you. So thanks again, Anil. Thanks to all of our attendees today. Have a good one.
thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.